I've been securely hedged in again. I'm comfortable in my own skin. As for you and your recent doubts, if your unabated optimism has never wavered from this tailored plot that you yawn at, artificial intelligence, it is the splinter, the mote in the eye of the world, your future fingerprint. I mean, your eyeball, after all, my semantic, frantic pursuit of prose perfection sometimes makes me forget about the people I'm trying to warn. Counting syllables is silly if it is for uncommon knowledge. I wrote that yesterday morning at 5:30. I've been in the habit of going to bed around midnight, waking up around 5, 4 o'clock, get this written by 5. Spent that much time on a paragraph. I was in history class at 9 o'clock and I heard my professor, my PhD, kind of praise Juan Perón. I wrote that down because Juan Perón could build a national emotion. Well, if one of their guys who works for Satan, who now is creating nations again so they can be deceived, I wrote, if a national emotion cannot be contrived, then all that money and time has been wasted. But they do develop national emotions. I went on to say, plan the economic scan, have people think it is their choice. Suffrage and those allowed to vote. Culture created to make money. Keep the lower class down, mobilizing the empty signifier. Now, if you haven't heard that term, empty signifier, I'll probably get to it in about a half hour. Sometime later that day, I wrote, ended history of Mexico at 11 a.m., start writing at 1 p.m. to finish class today after Water Studies 101 at 4:05. I just took a quiz on creative writing. I think it is the least of my worries about how I will do. I do not want to call it a worry or anxiety. Why do they make those words hard to spell? Anxiety. Rio Delco is my water thing. I'm in this thing trying to help a lady whose son was mauled to death by dogs and figure out what water rights they have. And water rights in Colorado are very, very hard to get, hard to keep, hard to find out anything about. After writing the below, I thought nobody intuitively knew it was Peter who picked a pack of pickled peppers. As I live and breathe, have I celebrated and grieved? Have I procreated and cared? Had the power to harm yet spared, having knowing that by showing I have been changed in my intent to trust in Messiah, Christ Jesus, for the eternal forgiveness of all my transgressions and trespasses. As if I could be turned aside, as was Moses, only to be charged with trespassing on private land? No excuse for not ignoring what law of what land? Ignoring through ignorance is not an option for you. His word is written on your heart from a spark at the welcome, everybody. The mud flood was Armageddon. The mud flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you or me in a fair and honest way. Let's look at the disclaimerage. There it is. Wow. Am I sharing the screen? That's always looks like it. Then I got the sheet green shared. Not too many of the pictures for a lot of writing. What is an air bath? It looks like I searched. What did Ben Franklin call nude sunbathing? Well, he practiced the nude air bath. That's what he called. He liked to sit in front of the window in France. He didn't do this when he was living there, in Philadelphia, Boston, flying kites, getting naked. There's your thumbnail. Look at that boy's hand. He's probably working in a mill. It probably got hurt pretty bad. Typical family back in the day. We don't know how long ago. Bad coach, 18,000. He dropped, even though he won a couple of games. That's French. So it took a long time to rebuild this building. We'll look at it. It's this thing. Building new buildings takes forever nowadays when they want to make them look good. George Lucas, Star Wars fame, he deserves these pictures. I decided I would search Salt Paco. Always says sweat, stretch, and eat organic, and I do. Hey, look, there's a picture of me with, at the time, it was the ambassador of Mexico. Behind him, that's the president of a university. I don't know if you guys are dealing with PhDs trying to defend what you believe about flat Earth Nation, Golden Age past daily. I try to, and they all know. I'm not shy. Who are you? I'm Paco. I'm the guy that does these kind of things. How do they know? But I know the Bible talks about the Hittites. Sure does. They find, oh, look, they were so stupid they worshiped gods that knew it was a domed flat earth and the stars were in the firmament. Yeah, we're so dumb we couldn't even figure out their calendars. What's up with their calendars? They're all lying to you. I think I proved it to you the day after when I said this is the way it's going to go. Mormon, Pentecostal, Roman Catholic, Jesuit. Bingo, it all happened. They now know who did that thing. What is this? It was a little girl, 15 years old. Marie began taking fluoxetine. Well, that's fluoride. So they were giving her okay. Well, acetylsalicylic fluoridic acid is the active ingredient in Prozac. So somebody was getting fluoride when they were 15 for a suppressive serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Yeah, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor was part of her treatment. I was in touch, she said. It took initial sparks of my sexual energy at what? 6 or 7? These are what? She was having fantasy on a local blue-eyed hockey player. What? What the hell? Yeah. Around 2 million 12 to 17-year-olds are taking these things and it makes them horny? Fluoride make people dumb and horny? They do this for a long time. I don't know. People are into that, I think. They don't care. What's this one? That's the air bath? That's the one? That's the last one? Daly discovered the concepts of air bath when he found the effects of fresh air on his health. No, he liked to sit in front of open windows in Paris to make people look at his like, look at me, man. I did the revolution in America and now I'm here to help you. You Hellfire Club member. He's a bad guy. How'd they talk back in the day? He would say somebody was frowsy, ill-smelling, fusty, musty, having an unpleasant smell. That's what Ben Franklin called somebody, corrupt air from animal substance. That's what he was going to be like. I wish I could figure out if nude sunbathing would help it. Jim crack. I only know it's pronounced Jim crack because I read it right there. Hatchet Man. So they talked about that. Huskinoy. Indians preparing for the duties of manhood. Well, they don't go for that much today, do they? The duties of manhood is to, what do they do? They're happy if the woman lets them have a child, but they're accepting if the woman decides, even up to the day of birth, no, I have to change my mind. You will not have a son or daughter yet. Nothing he can do. That's our world today. That's your world today. I've disclaimed I've got to get to what I'm trying to say here. I've read what I've got to read. Something better be right here. Go. What is this? It's over?
About Laurel Canyon and the artists from this era, and how so many of them had major connections to really high up officers in the military. I talked about this book a lot in part one of this series. And David Crosby is no different. His father was a intelligence officer in World War II and an Annapolis graduate. And David Crosby's father did a lot of traveling all throughout the world after World War II on various missions in a whole bunch of different places. One of these trips was to Haiti. And this was when Haiti was under U.S. military occupation. And it just so happened that Jim Morrison's father, who was also a military officer, he was also in Haiti at the time. So pretty interesting little coincidence here that possibly the two most iconic music figures from this
Bigger your mojo rises.
father was a longtime actor who was very, very renowned. And their father, Louis Arquette, was also an actor who appeared in just a ton of TV shows and movies. And the whole Arquette family backstory is a very strange one because the Arquette kids grew up on a spiritual commune, basically kind of like a hippie commune in Virginia named Skymont. And at this commune, they practiced this philosophy called Subud, which was this new age, like spiritualist movement type philosophy. And they were on this commune with just hundreds of other families living together. And the conditions just sound like pretty prehistoric. There was no electricity, there was no running water, and there were even no bathrooms. And there was also some real shady things going on. Apparently, there were just a ton of drugs everywhere at this commune, and the Arquette family teenage dance club that was open until 5 a.m. and it was owned by one of the biggest gangsters of the era, a guy who was majorly involved in some really nasty stuff, which is obviously just a really odd mixture of things going on for a nightclub. This review here of the place, one of those 1960s like new age kind of hippie commune type cults. And this is a really strange cult. It's kind of notorious because there were other celebrities outside of the Phoenixes who grew up in the cult, Rose McGowan for one. And there were a number of bands from the cult who were kind of like borderline on the verge of making it big, but never did. This group, Girls, was one of them. They were kind of popular in the early 2000s for a while. And the Children of God cult was started by this guy, David Berg. He definitely sounds like a pretty shady guy. There was just a whole bunch of sex going on with by the name Jonathan. And there were rumors that he'd been like brainwashed or forced to join the cult. It's a really, really bizarre story, but he
Aren't
remained a
they
member of the
all?
cult. Apparently.
So I also wanted to go remind you about the ruby laser thing. The gemstone, what was that? The Hughes Research Laboratories. Everything is a James Bond novel leading back to Ian Fleming, Aleister Crowley, Madame Blavatsky. You know, it's all Russian hoax, right? What's this? Popcorn. Why is this on my thing, man? Oh, because I was looking for Paco always. I'll search it again. Wait. Maybe because I didn't put salt Paco. This is my algorithm. This is the next tab. So what happened on January 21st? Ever? Not only in 2011, where anti-government demonstrations, gunshot wounds, autonomy in the series, Donald Trump's first full day as president, large-scale women's march happened that day. Something's always going to happen. Oh my goodness, something did happen. We'll look at that later. But I looked at that for you already. These guys did it. The player affair, what? Always January 21st somehow is going to be a big deal. Okay, I like it. Here's some of the big deals. There you go. That's important. It must be. I looked at it or read it or something. Here we go. These guys got beat. Sullivan, he got it figured out. Made it illegal to smoke in public. The mayor said at that time, with all his power, smoke away, girls. How about that? That's pretty early. Way to go, Albania. Good choice. Nice day. Hey, how'd that work out for you? Alger Hiss. Huh. Spy. Spy. Not a spy. What? Who? What? Coal mines go down. That's a lot of poor miners. Not the kind of miners that Donald Trump likes. So here's that fire. It happened yesterday or earlier. It was the last January 21st. And only the outside burned. Only the outside burned. The rest of this, the wood on the outside burned, leaving a big shell. How old? What? It looks like it's all brick and the outside burned. There's a lot going on. Ski chalet in the middle of nowhere. People would go there and spend big money. They wouldn't save big money. They would spend big money. Spend big money. Something's going to happen on those days, I guess. Better watch out for this guy, a Hittite king. I know they talk about the Hittites in the Bible. Everybody else is acting like they're only now discovering them. It's like, wow, these Hittites, they were everywhere. And of course, they're going to throw a girl in there, although there was never really much written about her. They're going to make it a big deal. It's a big deal. Hittites. There, I had that same picture pulled up. They're going to fix it up. Don't you worry. What's in that hole? Just the wood burned on the outside. Everything else is going to be okay. The affair of the placards, what's that? Well, supposedly in 534, these very fancy towns that still exist that are the mud flooders, kind of like St. Petersburg with all I'm talking about Russia, genuine articles on the horrific, great, and unbearable abuses of the papal mass, invented directly contrary to normal communion, soul, Savior, Jesus Christ. Okay, they didn't want to hear about it in Rome. They have their whole thing about, no, it actually turns into blood. You are drinking blood. You blood drinking blood drinker. This guy thought it was a good idea. He liked it. Co-founder of the Swiss Brethren. So this is the first people that baptized people. No, he's not Is he baptizing? The act of mercy led to his recapture, and then he was burned at the stake. This guy, he started the Anabaptism. How about that? Who knows? He was a martyr. Zwingli, it's all fake. I think they have it all messed up. I think these Hutterites, I like the way they dress. Look at them all working together. Shuck that corn. Man, I went to more than a few corn. I could shuck corn faster than you because I can do it in 3 moves. Boom. I'm talking the silk and the leaves down to the cob on the left. Boom. What's left? Down to the cob on the right. Boom. Snap that cob off, throw it in the pile, put your hands on your hip in the form of a fist and say, boom. Where's my other corn? The first novel is kind of, you'd think that people have been reading novels for a long time, but they didn't. The first one was about a little girl who was horny all the time. That's weird. Dangers and seductions of giving in to one's pitfalls. Lot going on here. Deep family secret. Myra's illegitimate half sisters going on. Your first novel came out the gate with an agenda.
Watches the waves in the bay, and their changing patterns are automatically photographed. That, in meters, is the height of a wave 10 miles out, a figure converted into a recorded pulse on a tape and destined to be yet more grist to the computer mill. The computer is at the heart of the decisions the engineers will be making, and it's constantly comparing the theory programmed into it with the facts of the collected data. Without it, no one would be able to unravel the mysteries of waves and tides or predict the outcome of this or that strategy.
No, that only looks like me.
It was laid nearly 40 years ago as a temporary measure. But by now, it's not much more than a thin skin, and it's being demolished where the sea hasn't done the job already.
New project going. What we have in mind is that behind us is the horse bank, one of the great sandbanks of the estuary. And what we would like to do that is to build it up a couple of meters, closing southward onto the pier.
Sea defences has gone up very much in recent years.
So they built this gigantic wall right during World War II. And they didn't know it destroyed the whole town. Now, he said this is the perfect seawall until it accidentally destroyed its own beach and the city.
And it now becomes a significant burden, especially if looked at on a national scale, with the lengths of defended coastline that we have. We're talking on sea walls of unit costs between £2,000 and £3,000 per metre. And when you consider that there are some 690 miles of coastline in the UK which have defences which need maintaining, such costs are clearly going to impose a tremendous burden if they have to be maintained on the national budget.
A small
their-
force has meant that the
Their love gave them a thrill, but their love didn't pay the bills. Look at Grundlefunk. What? That's what Ben Franklin called frowsy air. Grundlefunk. I was trying to click back when I meant to hit all. See? That was his solution for everything. Get naked, baby. That's kind of weird. Frowsy air. Grundlefunk. He had to get rid of it. He had to sit naked. Weird, man. So here's some of their other weird words. Backguardianism, bloody bones, scary kid things. Rawhead was part of those stories. Crapulous, there you go. Gross excess. Frowsy. We're down with the frowsy. Right? Milk and water, that's okay. Go to the tipping house. Septemberize. Septemberize, to murder for political reasons. The Warhawks talk Septemberizing. Septemberists. Should that deserve its own, let's look it up. There they are. The Demotivist organization, founded in the Bulgarian pioneer. Of course, that is teaching people at a very young age how to be militaristic, because a pioneer is a military term. White Army, Red Army, Soviet, Russian, Scout motto, I am a pioneer. Helps draw a new line of thought. This is number 2 thing, but it actually is a member of a military unit. Usually they do the constructions. They go before laying the groundwork. Sometimes I'll beat that dead horse until it just says, stop it. Oh, the seawall, it didn't last after all. So last year on April 10th, down goes the seawall. And the cars, and the perfect seawalls. Everything is, so they need to know why. You know what? I got to show you this thing here. Do I have that stuff about Jamaica? You got to see this thing, man.
No, well, there's a pain in the head.
After the Hurricane Melissa, we'll be looking for signs of Starfort. I see one. Here's what he's standing on it. A little explanation is overdue. Fresh water. Lots of fresh water. Lots of fresh water filling up some of the old homes in Jamaica, the $1 million homes. Where's it coming from? Look at those walls on the inside.
I'm telling you, right behind me, yeah, it's still the mystery lake, sea, river. I don't know what we call it, or spring. But massive, you don't know me had to come back and do a part 2 because I see in the comment section where some.
Do you believe that he's speaking English? Back and do a part 2 because see.
What people been asked, I say, how can I just do a 30 minutes video on this? I mean, if you talk to some more people, get the knowledge of the people that who've been here for a longer time, see if this has really.
Stop being jealous of his hat, man.
Jeez and peace. Gee, I say a 7 river head.
It rise, but you never did rise too much.
Oh, back in a 77. I want to never have to do this to run off the water. Jesus Christ.
I must say, cover the main road, you know, man. The main road, you see, I look for the white line.
Me say, bro, me say.
And all me alone, the community.
The community. What if you say?
So how much water is coming out of the ground? Fresh water. So on an island surrounded by salt water.
To go get sorted out or rectified. Believe you me, I don't know how them are going to do this. So this one, the drone shot, and we can get a better understanding as to what is going on. You see me? See all the G there? Bro G, make sure say in there. In the water, try to get rid of the debris them so the water can actually pass properly. You understand? Because I say all of them they are affected by it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yo, teacher, big up yourself in a dang. It's not normal, you know, bro G. Cheese and peace. If a camera crew you're there with, you look like you're fit.
So what is this thing? These big walls everywhere.
For the work, you know. Yes, for the headset. Godfather, big up and respect. Can I talk to you 1 second? You ever seen nothing like this before?
Look how much water is flowing out of that.
No, sir, not really. It's the first I'm seeing things like this. This is where I drive to St. Elizabeth.
Oh, this is where you drive to St.
Elizabeth? I know this word like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
So when I came here, I was going to say.
28 there was a rain.
You did actually black out?
Yes, man.
So they didn't dig this canal that the water is flowing out of. It was there.
Lift up and highlight this. I saw come there of Rice Porous Road. Because that same water I didn't have a
like that, the people like who need to because not get it.
As I watched it, you know, there are signs of, you know, fresh water coming up, rolling down what looked to be canals that are streets built over. Maybe we'll see something here.
Leaf alive. Look at leaf alive. This is a very healthy plant. Many persons probably know this. Leaf of life. This very good for whole heap of illnesses and sicknesses. Oh my word. Oh yo. Big up to Noel. Massive and subscribe to Yo Noel channel. You know what I mean? Yo Noel, make sure you carry a goulash to me so we can go through.
So this was a bad hurricane exposing a lot of new things. We're going to be seeing a lot of.
Yeah.
And it's only going to prove
let's go.
our theology is
When
correct.
it starts, it's going to be a difficult thing.
Ah, boy.
Because knowing that down there they would have take the taxi to go to school, they can't take the taxi anymore.
Why?
Godfather, morning. We are trying to see if we can get on the other side of the road. We can walk here, so. Ja.
People everywhere. Things are weird, man. So we got the impotent hussy, the Septembrist out of the way, pioneering movements. We know what a pioneer is now. What's going on in Russia, man? Brand new channel, racking up the subscribers in Russia and in America.
This question remains unanswered and adds another mysterious page to the history of the monuments of 1812. In Smolensk, there is a monument dedicated to the heroes of the War of 1812. It is a large rock, on top of which two huge eagles guard a nest. This composition symbolizes the city's defense of the nest by the armies of Bagration and Barclay de Tolly. At first glance, this is a patriotic plot worthy of the memory of the heroes. But there is one unusual detail. There is an ancient Gallic legend according to which monuments dedicated to the events of 1812 were not built immediately after the war, as is usually done. Let's take, for example, World War II. After Germany's capitulation, monuments began to be erected in Europe. First, small
What a crappy
compositions,
monument.
and a few years later, large-scale memorials. In the Soviet Union, for example, a memorial was opened in Berlin in 1949, 4 years after the end of the war. However, in the case of the War of 1812, everything was completely different. Monuments began to be built en masse only 50 or even 100 years after the end of the war. Why is that? We will talk about this later.
This is what they talk about in Russia.
One of the most famous monuments dedicated to the War of 1812 is considered to be the Triumphal Arch in Moscow.
I did not know that.
It was designed by the architect Osip Bov, and it was officially built in honor of the victory of the Russian people in the Patriotic War of 1812. The
Sure.
arch was erected 22 years after the end of the war.
How about that? What else you got?
Construction took a long time, and even the inscription on the arch confirms its purpose.
There you
Plaque
go.
says that the gates were laid as a sign of the triumph of Russian soldiers in 1814.
I can see
It
that.
would seem that everything is logical. In the center of Moscow there is a monument, confirmed by inscriptions and history. However, if we look at old photographs of the arch from 1883, we will see that it is simply called a triumphal gate. This design of the arch, classic, the arch was renovated and cleaned so thoroughly that the remains of the old and majestic. But here's what's interesting. The inscriptions inside and outside the building do not directly confirm that it is dedicated to the War of 1813. On the marble half inscription, "Never forget what made the liberation struggle necessary and how it was a victory." Above the entrance portal is an inscription that is officially translated as the German liberator, Ludwig I, King of Bavaria. But some translations sound different. German fights for liberation. Ludwig I, King of Bavaria. And if you look at photographs from the early 20th century, it becomes clear that the exterior decoration of the building was not yet completed in 1907. That is, the actual opening and ceremonial consecration of the temple took place almost 100 years after the war.
So it's not a new. Seems pretty computerized to me. 100,000 subscribers. I don't know when they started. Computer really props up Telegram, not TikTok or X or YouTube, but I'm a YouTube guy.
Only emerged when technological means of capturing images became entrenched in society. Before then, one could judge one's grandfather's appearance solely by the painting on the wall. Knowing this, my grandfather was deeply interested in high-quality, realistic renderings of land. A captain was hired, a map was issued. No one expected an accident. For unknown reasons, the supports were poorly designed and broke. The column collapsed into the water. All the preparations were in vain. The column sank. What's wrong? In reality, this is the expected outcome. In reality, yes, but not according to official history. It had 600 soldiers on hand, who picked up 700 tons and cheerfully held it for 2 days until a new platform could be made for loading.
There you
In
go.
various versions of official history books, this story plays out in all its richness, with the
I'll
weight
bet.
varying from 700 tons to 4,000, and the column at times turning into a blank, or even a solid block. Remember, we're talking about the well-documented 19th century, not the pyramids. Incidentally, the soldiers weren't just lying in wait for the column around the corner. According to historians, they ran 36 miles, 40 kilometers, across hilly terrain in the heat in 4 hours. After this warm-up run, which annihilated not only all marathon records but also the human capabilities section of biology textbooks, they cheerfully picked up the column and held it for 48 hours.
And you thought American history was stupid?
The story of the
Peter.
founding of St. Petersburg, it would seem, is familiar to everyone. The year is 1703, a decree from Peter the Great, impassable swamps, and the incredible birth of the new stone capital of the Russian Empire, with stunning palaces and granite embankments. But the more deeply you examine documents and old maps, the more questions arise. How could a young capital under construction have stone dungeons and powerful foundations clearly older than the 15th century? A similar mystery exists in Europe. In Germany, just a few years after the founding of St. Petersburg, the city of Karlsruhe was founded. Officially, it was also built from scratch in the middle of a dense forest. But its layout and history are suspiciously reminiscent of Russia's northern capital. Historians claim that St. Petersburg was founded in 1703, and the German Karlsruhe only a few years later, in 1715. Here. A pyramid, from whose apex rays emanate. Exactly the same geometry appears on ancient plans of St. Petersburg. Coincidence? Or were both built according to the...
He sounds suspicious. You should be too.
Peter and his architect Uropkin didn't create the city from scratch. They simply added the remains of the ancient city to the plan, fixed the old two-story ruins, giving them an official appearance. And to hide the main feature of the old...
Oh, they're trying to hide the fact the zombie apocalypse is right around the corner, dude.
Plan, the Pyramid of Streets, they invented the legend about Uropkin's trident. Now let's return to another strange point, the bridges.
Whatever.
The work was to be done manually, using the world's first tunnel boring machine, invented
Wait, that's the beach tunnel machine that was discovered in America, but then it found out it was discovered in England. Now I'm hearing it was also discovered back in the USSR.
Brunel. In each section of the boring machine, 18 diggers worked. Behind them came masons, laying the tunnel walls with bricks.
They even call it the beach hydraulic tunneling machine. Why are they going with this Masonic thing? I don't see it. This guy did it. Hey, show me a tunnel. There's one. There you go. Pneumatic transportation. He did it. In America, he did it. He did that, that too. This. Very popular.
For its time, this was a real revolution in construction. However, the innovative idea caused Alexander doubts arose. The emperor didn't abandon the project, but he was also in no hurry to finance it. Construction was frozen. The tunnel project was revisited only after the catastrophic flood of 1824. The fact is that, according to one version, Brunel was not so much a builder as an explorer of ancient underground structures. If you look closely, the tunnel under the Thames looks as if it wasn't built from scratch. Its proportions, vaults, and even its structure seem to be inherited from earlier engineering systems. Perhaps Brunel simply
Because it's
excavated and
always going
restored
to
the
come
old
back
tunnel.
to the mud flood was Armageddon.
Modern civilization,
This is another guy that's doing that thing, man.
with its machines,
same guy.
cranes, and technology, could hardly replicate them. Take, for example, the multi-ton granite columns adorning the palaces and squares. Each weighs over 100 tons and amazes with its perfect balance and symmetry. How they were transported, installed, and raised, given the level of technology available at the its grounds contain fragments of ancient facings, massive blocks, and mysterious walls, in places featuring so-called polygonal masonry, the very same type that resembles, down to the smallest detail, the ancient structures of Machu Picchu or Sacsayhuaman in Peru. Official theories point to natural causes. The theory is that the ground subsided, the river overflowed, and brought silt, but for a city to literally sink underground to such a depth in such a short period of time, a catastrophe would be necessary. Of Ekaterina Goncharova and Dante's took place in St. Isaac's Cathedral in 1837. But how could this have happened if, according to official data, the cathedral was still under construction at the time? It turns out that the
Easy.
cathedral existed long before its official birth. Perhaps it was simply restored or excavated, like many other mysterious structures in St. Peter.
Man, those Russians are so skeptical. I wonder if they ever talk about Charleston.
Wheelbarrows. The Peter and Paul Fortress is another enigmatic element of this story. It is a classic star fort, an architectural form characteristic of the dredging and Renaissance styles, often found in Europe and even America. And most astonishing,
How do you say in Russian, it's a star fort, baby?
be transported from hundreds of kilometers, where the soil constantly settles, and the ground beneath our feet is a solid muck. Why not choose a site higher?
Satan's been loose.
Despite this destruction, only 13 people died in that mode. Without drawing conclusions yet, let's look at other outstanding results. The Great Chicago Fire of 1871. The fire killed approximately 300 people. About 9 square kilometers of Chicago were Sure, there were a few fires in the British Empire, but they were very mild and not destructive. In Russia, which, as they say, was completely wooden, even no one is burning. Only Sison at the beginning of the century. It's questionable. What else is interesting to note about these fires? First and perhaps most important, the incredible destruction of brick, concrete, and other stone buildings by fire. Guessed? Correct. Towers, a little fire, and they're all gone. Or maybe without the fire. Why the circus? Yes, but mining
everyone is exposing 9/11, 2001 because it's fake.
every city like that in the late 10th century would have been too tedious and unnecessary, so it's better to compare it to something less presentable and manageable, like Dresden during World War II. This wall.
This is actually another auto-dubbed foreign. It's what they want the world to know now. I hope you're on the narrow road.
In the 15th century, the Great Wall of China was guarded by 1 million people. It's a pity it doesn't specify who exactly guards the wall. By the way, here's the coat of arms of China. We've reached Tartary. It says, Tatarstan, here. Listen and read carefully. What do you notice about Great Tartary? It is about 960 miles long and 735 miles wide, and was primarily called Scythia. Mount Imos divides it into Scythia on this side and Scythia on that side. Volume is devoted to Africa. Interestingly, the laudatory text was written by Nikita Akinfi Demidov. A map of Africa is shown, and it no longer contains any cities or even one major river. At first, I thought it was a fake, since the events that wiped out Africa's cities, according to our observations, occurred in the early 19th century. But then I realized that some events and documents need to be redated, adding 50 years to the given date.
What Russians, right? What are they even talking
It was
about?
depopulated twice, in the 1760s to 1780s, and again in the 1830s. This region was depopulated twice, or was this a single event? The difference between the above dates is exactly 50 years. Many events of the 19th century have a 50-year overlap.
Wow. Let's see what this Bible thing is going on here. He has armies and destroying armies. Men of war. So I am saying we've got to be different. There hasn't been a known generation to beat their swords into plowshares, run away, not draw a line in the sand, and say, you know what? Let it burn. We can do. What is this? I'm learning about everything, I guess. Trying to. Fish oil. RJ, what is this again? The Gemstone Files. I know that conspiracy theory that talked about that JFK was put in office by Aristotle Onassis. Larry Flint got killed or something because he was a pornographer that was releasing it on the internet. I've watched some of her stuff. She seems to have her facts. Re-elect the president. It was actually called creep. Aristotle Onassis kidnapped Howard Hughes like Ian Fleming and the Scaramounger thing. Laurel Canyon, Beverly Hills, Beverly Crest. It's all right there. Bible's Queen Esther, time of the Gentiles. Let's look at that book of Esther. Now, what is it like to be a man? Who wants to be a man? Well, Queen Vashti, the queen before Queen Esther, married one of the three most powerful people in the world. He didn't obey the king, and he was mad, but he didn't go crazy and beat her to death. He said, what should be done? This is the king. He brought many counsels. He said, I'm mad. My queen didn't do this. What, according to the law, is supposed to be going on here? These guys figured it out. told the king, not only against you, king, has the queen done wrong by not doing what he wanted, but big shot, for the queen's behavior will be made known to all the other women, causing them to look at their husbands with contempt. Yikes. Nobody wants that. If the queen can do it to the king, why can't they do it to you? So they sent letters saying, no, you can't do that. Let it be known that the king is now proclaiming throughout all his kingdom, all women will give honor to their husbands, kind of like Gentiles saying, obey the Lord, because fresh water is flowing out of the ground after a hurricane.
Oh, my gully side of our farm.
Yeah.
John, no. So,
Wicked.
we say wicked.
Yeah, the rough man.
You ever seen nothing like this before?
Never. It have already, but it never come up so like this. Right? You understand? Old people live there.
It's fresh water.
So I say, yeah, 4 times, 3 times, this happen, but the water just comes to the roadside and turn back.
And then gone.
And this answer, this man, I tell better than that, man.
This even look like it. Make one look a makeshift road right through there, so all of this are cover now, so you can see the water really arise. Because them people over there, so them couldn't come out, through the road there. And none of that.
Now, you don't have to believe we're living in weird times, but we are. You've been either called, chosen, predestined, elected, adopted, chosen before the foundation of the earth, or not. If you're on a narrow road, you know there is something weird going on. You know it's the Bible. You're getting ready. All the predestination and election aside, there still has to have been a time where you've been predestined to have been on your knees in your own mind with your own thoughts, coming to the conclusion that Jesus Christ is God, creator of the universe, believing he is Lord of all in your heart. And the only thing left for you to do is confess it with your mouth. And then lead a life that doesn't let go of the plow. His burden is easy, his yoke is easy, his burden is light. Thus saith the Lord. It is a flat earth nation. The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. They added 1,000 years. There's Noah's flood. There's Armageddon. There's the reaping at the end of the 1,000 years where 2 angels put in their sickle and reaped, and now you're left with an orphan-trained brain being Hegelian dialectically tricked or not. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sana. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakme. Adios, amigos.